Welcome back to Good Morning Enablement. Here's another episode made specifically for you. My name is Maria White, formerly Vice President for Enablement of Twilio and Cornerstone On Demand more recently. And during my tenure at Twilio, I was contacted many times by a company called Sharebird. And what they do is they take experts in their subject matter expert, and they have lots of people who ask them questions before they go live. And as an enablement expert, I was asked multiple questions. And what I was going to do in this short episode was talk about those questions, because obviously I'm sure some of these were being looked at by 800 or 900 people at a time. So I wanted to share them with you and also double click down on them and give a little bit more about my response. So please click and subscribe so that we can continue to make these episodes for you. And if you have any questions that you'd like myself to answer, please go ahead and put them in the comments and I will respond to you directly. Okay, as I said, there's going to be like short, maybe 5 questions, and double click down on the response I gave. And then we can see if you have anything else for me. So let's get into this. The very first question. As an enablement leader, how do you bring together other departments? For example, marketing, product, support. How do they support sales enablement efforts? So the term I like to use, it's been around for a long time, it's not new, but I like to use the term that all of the departments, when they collaborate together, is better together. So collaboration with other departments with sales enablement would be a little bit like this. This is what I have done, and it's proven to be successful. First and foremostly, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to have to create content which is about the products or services that are being sold by the sales. And that's normally done with the product team. And so there are 3 components. You've got the product team, who it's all about product marketing and how they get to the customer about the products. But then you have operations, which is all about how do we price it? How do we, put a deal together? So that's important too, that they're involved in some of these conversations when you're about to build training. So one of the things that I have done many times and would still do is create a council. So I would call it a sales enablement council, and then I would pull in the correct departments. I wouldn't necessarily, depending on the size of my team, I wouldn't run it myself, but I would have someone in my team to run that, normally someone from content, if it was content specific. And I would have my enablement comms person there. I'd have a content, someone responsible for content development. If we had PMs in the company, we'd have a project manager from enablement there. And then I would ask for representatives from finance, sometimes legal, product, marketing, of course, and also from operations. And then we would set times to meet regularly and collaborate on enablement priorities or product priorities or pricing priorities. We would build out races, and we would make sure we knew who was accountable for each phase of each whatever we were doing, whatever project we were doing. Now, as I got into more complex things, not only would I have this generic enablement council, I'll just give an example. One of the larger organizations, we had several councils. One was, here's an EMEA sales enablement council, here's a LATAM one, here's an APAC one, here's a North America, because the teams are so giant. So there were specific nuances based on just that area for selling. And one size does not fit all when you're talking about EMEA and APAC, where there's, multiple countries and multiple languages and multiple ways to sell. So that's the key. Set up councils and bring in the people into that and drive it forward. You're going to build better collaboration, especially if you schedule regular cadence and make sure there's a representative from each and hold them to it so that they're informed and can contribute. And keep everything documented, share the successes, take input and build together. And when you're talking to your stakeholders, you can actually, elevate this into their sphere and say, look, we have these councils. So it gets everybody on the side for the sales, those supporting departments working together towards a common goal. Help the sellers sell more in the best way possible with all of the organizations collectively together. But that's pretty much it. I mean, the 3 things I've noted there is, keep it documented, schedule regular cadence, and make sure you get all the key departments in the meetings to commit to it, is the most efficient way to build credibility, to get the influence, the trust and collaboration with your department heads. And remember, they'll also be talking to the same sales leaders that you are in other meetings, just like you. So building your collaboration and trust will help you all better partner together for the benefit of the sales organization. So that's number one. And that is the question again was, let me just recap it. How do you bring other departments together to support sales enablement efforts? Okay, number two, how do you get feedback from sales on whether or not your training is relevant and the frequency of the training is correct? And that's a really good question. That's a really, really good question. So here are some of the strategies that I have implemented before in multiple companies, which has really helped get that feedback from the field on, is it the right training and is the frequency correct? I tend to expand it and do it amongst other things as well, but it's by conducting a twice a year annual survey. And in that annual survey, you will put questions that say, what modality of training best suits you? What don't you like? What do you like? How often do you think you should be trained? And then what you get is you get a consolidated lens of the whole of the sales team, not just the sales managers, not just the sales directors, not just the sales VPs, not just the C-suite or operations or other people putting in an opinion. You're getting this, directly from the field. And then you can share and socialize that feedback with the other departments that, want to influence that decision, and they can see the survey's input and help make educated decisions based on data insights. The other thing is you can attend weekly sales meetings. When I have headed up teams, I've always had sales enablement business partners where they had a seat at the table and they were meeting with their sales leaders, and they were beginning to understand what they need and how they can provide it to them because they were just part of the team. And that's another great way. And last but not least, if you don't want to do the survey and you're not included on the sales teams, what you can do, it's a very simple way of gathering this data, almost like fast funneling, is you could do a quarterly interview and just ask permission. You don't really have to ask permission, but it's a good best practice. Just go amongst your sales leaders and say, hey, can I pick out five of your sellers or two of your sellers, every so often to just interview them on what's working, what's not working. I'm sure they're going to say, okay. And that's it. Just conduct a quarterly interview, 10 to 20 sellers, and ask those questions directly and note it down. And there's your litmus test of what's working for them and the frequency. So, the other thing as well is some of the questions you can ask is, do you prefer in-person training or virtual training? Tell us about the best experience you've ever had in training. What's the best way, to do this at scale and stuff like that, if that makes sense. So forgive me, I think that there was 2 questions there that I mixed in. So I'm just going to reread those. Those were some questions you could put into the survey. But now I'm going to ask a question that was asked to answer a question that was asked to me. How do you leverage classroom training, like a training course basically, and how do you make it applicable to the seller, what the sellers are experiencing on a daily basis? So effective account discovery can be the subject matter that you train them on. So for this example I'm giving, I'll reestablish. How do we take classroom training or training to the sales and make it applicable to their job role, what they're doing on their daily basis? So they're learning what really happens versus learning a fictional company with fictional problems. This way it's more attuned to what they're going to be doing when they come out of the course. So focus it on something like account discovery as an example. This will be for this example anyway. And these enablement sessions typically would use a use case, with fictional companies and fictional situations and scenarios to gauge what they would do in these situations. Well, the way that you can get some real world training, make it really, really relevant for the individual, make them know that they're going to do that in their job, is convert those case studies into real life examples. So for example, when you're doing the case study, expand on the techniques for effective discovery based on what they were already asking. And then go to each attendee and ask them to come prepared with 2 to 3 accounts that they can work on during the workshop. Straight away, you're honing into the way they ask discovery questions already. That's real life. And number two, they have to come with 3 accounts they're currently prospecting to. And then we can use the exercises in the training to focus on those 3 real life companies they're prospecting to. So the exercise will allow them time to do their own account discovery during the workshop. They can write the questions out, and then when they're ready, they can apply them to their real accounts. Some of the best trainings, in the various organizations I've worked on that I have seen delivered by my facilitators and trainers, was when we actually got them to send emails directly to the customers in the workshop. So they were getting some real-time responses based on what they were doing, and that worked really, really well. But get feedback from the group. Ask them, what did they uncover during their exercise? Make sure that they're getting that peer-to-peer learning. And number 4, during the discussion, allow the class to share experiences that are beyond the classroom. What do I mean by that? Just allow them to share, when I was having this conversation with this prospect, I asked this question and this was the result. Let them share individually their experiences from out of the classroom, bring them into the classroom before you do the exercise, and that will make the exercise very, very compelling. Make sure you know the accounts they've worked on before they come in the session so that you can add value to what's going on. And then there was a follow-on question. Okay, great. You've just created a course that is using real life experiences in the training. Hallelujah, that's fantastic. Now, I've got 2,000 sellers. How do I scale this across the organization? So this is different because it's not just about you. This is going to be about the stakeholders as well. And what do I mean about that? So if your stakeholders come to you and say, that training was great, you did a pilot, fantastic, we love it, the sales love it. Now we need you to deliver that to every salesperson in the company, and there's 2,000, 5,000, whatever the number is, could be 500, then you're going to need to make sure that so this means you've already proved the value of the workshop, and now you're going to have to make sure that you have secured an agreement from the stakeholders to run this workshop at scale. And, if you've only got 2 trainers and a couple of business partners in your department, running it across scale within a certain period of time is going to be difficult. So one of the very first things, once you have stakeholder buy-in, is to elicit volunteers from your sales and your pre-sales organization who you can, or across the community, maybe product marketeers as well, so that you can train these individuals to stand and deliver the course with you. And this will allow us to do it at scale across the organization. It's really critical as well that as you're thinking about this project of doing it at scale, that you schedule sessions well in advance and have backup trainers ready just in case. And you need to make sure that you're measuring the success of the program and keep your stakeholders informed, or next time they won't ask you to run anything out at scale because they won't feel like what you've done has been successful. Okay, so that last question was on how do you make classroom training a real world experience, applicable to the accounts they're doing daily. And then number 2, how do you scale a course like that across an organization? The next one is, how do you stay up to date on industry trends and best practices in sales enablement? It's not a hard one. There is, sales enablement 14 years ago when I started doing it was, a couple of people in an organization, not that very much spoken about in the industry. It was more about learning and development, trainers, facilitators, all adult, all those things you would hear about. Obviously, fast forward 14 years, it's everywhere. They're changing the name of it, sales enablement, field excellence, revenue enablement. It's everywhere. So you have a lot to choose from now. So some of the best practices is to, if your company has subscriptions in marketing to Gartner or Forrester, they always have tons of information on industry trends. But normally you have to have a subscription to get some of those really detailed insights. But if your company doesn't have a subscription, go onto those 2 websites anyway, type in sales enablement, and you'll be able to find some free stuff or some free webinars to get industry best practices. The other thing that you're going to need to do is to go and do your research and find out what new tools and technologies are coming out. You have to research that. Sales enablement tools, you could do a quick Google search like that and it'll bring you up all of the different things. HubSpot's a great place to look for this. They categorize stuff in there a lot. But yeah, you need to stay up to date on the technologies. Why do I say that? I think there's something like, I'm going to, hopefully, I'm probably making this up now, but I believe there is something like between, let's say 5 and 15 new LMSs being created, yearly. I think it's more like quarterly, but I'm going to say yearly to keep myself safe and to give you accurate information. But that just goes to show you that a learning management system, there's so much to choose from now. Where do you go? So there's always so much. You need to keep your eye on that and look at all of those things there when it comes to the tools. And then also as well, if you are training your reps into verticals, then that's some more research you need to do. You need to sign up to some of the industry specific newsletters and information to stay ahead of the curve. If you're selling to C-suite or you're selling to CISO or CIO or CMO, you should sign up to those newsletters to give you insights on what they're thinking about, what the trends are, so you can bring that into your enablement. And you can also just purchase benchmarking reports as well. So if you just wanted a one-off, you can do that. But here are 3 enablement networks that could help you. So the Sales Enablement Society, they have chapters everywhere. Go and sign up to it. The Association for Talent Development, it's a paid for subscription, but it'll be well worth your money for research. There's also Sales Enablement Pro, which I think has now been acquired by HighSpot, which is a content management system, and they may even be calling it the Sales Enablement Collective. So there are a few things there for you that you can get involved in to keep you up to date with industry insights in sales enablement. Okay, I don't know if this is the last. Yeah, I think this is the last question, the next one. Okay, the very last question, and then we'll end it there. It's how do you take feedback from the sales organization and develop new contents and strategies? Okay. So there's lots of different ways you can approach that. There's no right or wrong way. I'm just giving you some of the ways that I've used that have been successful in the organizations I've worked for. In Q4 early on, and your fiscal year could be anything. I'm going to use January to December. So early in October, for your Q4, very beginning of Q4, because that's their biggest sales quarter of the year. Q4 normally is, about 45%. You should think about having your sales leaders and operations. You should really be thinking at that point about what are you going to do for the sales kickoff and looking at how that's going to flow into the year. If you haven't already at the end of the year be working on your sales kickoff, then you're probably this might be too late for you. But anyway, around about that time, second half, latest October, this is when you need to gather the sales leaders and operations and start talking about, okay, how are we going to reinforce what we're doing in sales kickoff through the year? And this will help you get the feedback that you need to develop the strategies. Number 1, do an annual survey. Have all different categories that are like, how do they like to receive training? When do they like to receive training? What are the top objections they're getting? Do they want more training on negotiation or closing? Get the field to tell you that information. You can build that into your strategy. Have interviews with your key sales leaders and your product marketeers and your operations people, and make sure that you have a good insight into what they're planning for in the next year. What are they planning for? What are their top sales plays? Where do they think they're going to make their most money? What is their strategy? Gather all that data together, and then you can build that into your sales enablement plan. What I found to be very successful is also making sure that the framework is all about making sure it's on the performance of the sales reps, whatever you're building towards in your strategy. So it could be access to information, could be part of it. And you're getting this, remember, reinforcing the answer to the question. How do you do it? Do a survey, set up meetings, speak to all of these key stakeholders. But when you're gathering that data, you do need to make sure, how do they like to be trained? How often? Where are the gaps? All of that stuff you can build into your sales kickoff, and then a continuous development throughout the rest of the year. And you can look at your technology to get data insights as well. So your learning management system will tell you lots of information, and also your content management system where the field go for information. And also if you have like a call monitoring system that gives you, records calls and does summaries, those three technologies will give you some fantastic data insights that you can learn from those metrics to see where there are some gaps. But pretty much normally what's uncovered from all of these different ways of getting information will help you to develop either a new sales content and build a mutual strategy with your sales leaders, or it will also help you to present any new programs that you want to get sales leaders buy-in from prior to the launch. So pretty much, how do you get feedback? I'm going to simplify it from the sales org to develop new content and strategies. You survey them, you speak to them, and you use data insights from the technology. You gather that all together, and then you can literally go and recommend a new program or get buy-in, and get buy-in that way, or go and get buy-in from something that you have found from the data insights, and then get the buy-in from there. Phew, that was 5 or 6 questions, but it seemed like it took a long time to double click down in there. So that's it. I'll just round off by saying thank you so very much for listening. Please like and subscribe. And again, if you have any questions from a seasoned vice president of sales enablement, or revenue enablement, as they call it now, globally, and you would like to get your questions answered, please reach out through the email in the description, maria@goodmorningenablement.com, or you can just leave a comment in the comment section and we will respond to you. Well, I'll respond to you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.